we're looking at your face and head alignment, and you've actually got some great face posture and head alignment. You want to make sure that you're looking 10 to 12 yards in front of you, but when we look at your photo that I've taken from the video, you can see that your face looks extremely relaxed and your head is looking straight up. It's not looking down at your feet, which usually you can see if somebody has an injury. So for you, that's great to see that you aren't looking down. When here we're looking at your shoulders, and you want to make sure that you're staying relaxed. You want to be scrunching up your shoulders. Looking at both the warm-up, which is on the left side, and the strides on the right side, you can see that you are fairly relaxed. Looking great. Looking here at the next few frames in your running, you can see on the left side, again, your strides, the warm-up rather, is looking fairly relaxed, but on the right side you almost seem to bunch up a little bit. Just to make sure that you keep your shoulders relaxed, make sure you warm up your shoulders before you run by doing windmills. Here we look at your torso forward lean posture, and again we're measuring that forward lean position at the toe of our flat-footed position, vertical from the hips to the ears. The ideal range we want to see is 5 to 9 degrees. So here on the left side you've got your warm-up, 11 degrees. It's not great, but it's not bad. On the right side is the strides after we went through our running session, and you can see the 9 degrees. So you want to stand tall a little bit more, but I think that's going to come with more work with your cadence. When we look at the left side of your run, you can look on the warm-up on the left side, 13 degrees. Again, you need to lean a little bit less forward. Typically, sometimes people are actually in like 1 or 2 degrees. And looking on the right side, obviously you're at 7 degrees, great range. Looking at the arm angle, again, the ideal range we want to see is the 80 to 90 degrees. Sometimes some people say 70 to 90 degrees. Again, 90 degrees roughly is the ideal number that you want to look to hit. This is during the strides after we worked on some form, and you can see that your numbers are at 104 degrees. And as we move forward, and again in 104 degrees, then we move forward again. Then you close up a little bit at your 81. And we keep going forward, and then you're at 73 degrees, and you can see how much you're closing your angle, and then almost to a straight arm at 116 degrees, and the next frame shows at 140. Here we look at the front view of your arms, and basically you want the motion to be front and back. Where we're looking at your arms, you can see you kind of have a little bit of a chicken wing. So essentially you want to take that motion and make it instead of side to side, you want to take that arm and be going front to back, so more of that 80 to 90 degrees. As you could saw in the last pictures that I had up, that you saw that almost your arm is at 140 degrees. So those are numbers that you can take, and hopefully you can realize that when you want to be around the 90 degrees, then that'll help you with your running form. Quickly looking at the front view of your arms. Here we want to make sure that your arms aren't crossing the center line. Sometimes athletes over-rotate, and here you're not doing that. I picked the frames that would show the most rotation, and as you can see, you are not over-rotating because your arms aren't crossing, but again, that left arm, you want to make sure that it's going front to back and not wasted motion almost side to side. Here we're looking at the left side view of your running form. This is strictly during the warm-up phase of our run session together. And here you can see you're at 83 degrees, and we'll go through other slides as I'll show you in a second. But again, you want to stay in the 80 to 90 degree range. I will say that the warm-up in terms of your arm angles was significantly better than it was in the stride session. So when we go into the other running phases of your warm-up, you can see you're at 89 degrees, then you go down to 79 degrees, and you actually start to close up your arms. So in your warm-up, at least, you want to open up your arms, but the 80 to 90 degree range is ideal. Here we look at the grip or hand placement of when you're running, and the ideal, what I like to see athletes do is pretend they have a roll of dimes or something round cylindrical in their hand, and then so you're almost making a fist that's not taut, and then you want to feel like you're taking a potato chip and sticking it between your thumb and forefinger, because your thumb's supposed to rest on your forefinger. As you can see on the left and right side, that you've got severe open grip, and I wouldn't almost go as to say it's severe, but you want to, you're contracting your muscle to stay open, so you want to try and keep it closed and keep relaxed. Here we're looking at the hip drop, and your number is very good. I didn't expect to see this, which is is a good thing. Your hip drop you want it to be below 12 degrees, which means that you don't have too much of a hip instability. If you had a higher number, it means that your hips aren't directly under your torso. Here we're going to look at your knee angles, and we're going to look at a few different things, but first the lower leg, so where your shin is, essentially you want to keep it 90 degrees or perpendicular to the ground. And then if you extend past that, you're going to be producing a braking force. So when we look at the left side, you can see, as we go slowly forward, you can see you almost keep your leg 100% straight. Again, this is your warm-up, the left side, and you can see it's on that braking force. Now when we look to the right side at your strides, that running position, you've got your leg at 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, perpendicular to the ground. Even when you come down, you got a little slight angle, but you still come down at 90 degrees. Same thing on the left side. At the last second, you kind of switch only, but when you're transitioning to forward movement. So number one is to try and focus on keeping the left lower leg at the 90 degrees. Now to do that, you want to be able to land with your hips or your feet underneath your hips, and this is going to cause a relatively soft landing, and you want your knees to be bent at around 160 degrees when you're measuring from the ankles to the knees to the hips, or 20 degrees when you're measuring from the hips to the knee. And I'll show you looking at the right side from the knee to the ankle and then up to the hips. I had measured it before, so you're roughly around 150 degrees. And you want that to be 90 degrees. Now, when we erase that and then try and figure out where that 160 degree mark is, so this is where you are, and you want to be right here. That just tells me that you have tight hip flexors, which we've already talked about before. And I don't need to measure on the left side, the angle, and just the black isn't great to measure it, but you can kind of get the idea that that's where you want your knee angle to be. So to kind of fix that, you want to really work on stretching your hip flexors. Foam rolling, and there's lots of other stuff you can do, but again, I highly suggest trying to work out those hip flexors. Reiterating what I just previously said, but we look at the now hip extension of your leg, so we're measuring from the hip to the toe off position of the rear leg. And as you can see, you're at 22 degrees. Ideally, you want to be at the 24 to 30. The greater the number, the better. So again, this just is a repeat to show that you just need to stretch your hip flexors. Which you had talked about before that you've been doing, but really have somebody else help you as well. The last thing I want to mention is overstriding. And I have two images that I'm going to use, and the first one is the one you're seeing now. And ideally, you want to see that line more of in front of you or straight. The line that you see is going from the mid-shin to the ear, and it should pass from the feet or the ankles to the hip to the ear. And again, this is the strides, and you're overstriding a little bit. It just means we need to improve ankle flexibility, but really work on that forward posture and increase the cadence to 90 to 100. Overall, I'm really happy with where your running form went from the warm-up to the strides.